Hello, assalamu alaikum everybody. Hope you're all safe, sound, and healthy. And now we're going to dig into a little more because, okay, and I'm hoping that this will be the last time that I talk about it because seriously, how much can we scream and how much can we yell blue murder when we know that it wouldn't matter? People are doing everything on their own as always. The army is nowhere to be seen where it should be seen. The government is nowhere to be seen where it should be seen. The PDMA is nowhere to be seen where it should be seen. And I'm not talking about the middle class or the elite, or no, I'm talking about actually where the floods have wreaked havoc. Okay, where, for example, in Chung, as I said, it's flooded. Multan Road flooded. Do you think that actually elites live in Chung and in Multan Road and all? No. Okay, you will find all classes, okay? So it's not about classes, it's not about social status, it's not about anything. And if anybody tries to make it that, then I'm sorry, but that's very shameful, okay? What it is about is lives getting lost and politicians playing politics, which again takes me back to my previous podcast in which I at length mentioned the fact and berated them on the fact that these people are probably deliberately playing with our lives, playing with our assets, causing deliberate harm and loss to people. Again, because somehow they think that that's going to be to their advantage, because now they're going to use it and politically align themselves and say, oh, that's why you need us. Well, actually, if anything, they're just proving to us over and over again that they are here to destroy the country and that we do not need them. So I don't know what games they're trying to play, but whatever it is not to it's just not working either way. Okay, so for example, you've got, as we already know, Narwal, Sialkot, they've already been flooded, and we're not talking about places that were, that you're going to say, oh, those were, no, that's not a question of in Lahore. About Lahore, I explained why the floods are coming within the city all the way up to the city when it never should have. That I've explained. But in other Punjab area cities, and which are basically linked to the other rivers like CHENAB and Satluj and all. So point is that those cities are also getting flooded very badly. Now, are you going to say that, oh, there too it's probably just because? No, you see, that's what you need to understand. We have talked about some of the major factors that have created all these problems, right? All these issues. But again, in every single case, I have said that the major factor has always been the ongoing corruption of the government, the land mafia, the army, the army that has, I've talked about DHA again and again as to how they have, why do you know why? The idea of cantonment was actually created by Hazrat Umar, which is followed worldwide. Okay, the whole army infrastructure, the organization of accountability, the organization of intelligence, the organization of army, this whole framework was created by Hazrat Umar, which is followed today by the whole world. Okay, and the idea of a cantonment was that the army should stay away from civilians, as in the cantonment must not be anywhere near civilian population. And what do the army go and do? The first thing they go and do is they make their residential area defense housing society, and they also make the cantonment area as a residential area. And now every time something happens, they wonder about what's going to happen to these societies because they're right next to the border. Like, are you serious? What you did, as I said, was inherently illegal. Generally, even in army law, basically, this is something that you're not even supposed to do. And then, as I said, that wasn't enough. You extended it all the way to eating up agricultural lands that would have been your natural environmental deterrent for floods. So you extended all the way to the riverbed and right in the middle. And then, as if that wasn't enough, you created another colony right at the riverbed side, which is again, or the river embankment, which is EME. And then you have your park view, which again, as I said, the army is equally to blame for even that society, because after all, again, it's your army and your government that is registering these colonies, giving licenses and accepting their existence. And but anyway, we've already dealt with that topic. Point being, now you've got Chenab, which is in devastation, right? You've got sorry, Chinyu. Sorry, I'm right now. My mind is completely out because at the moment I'm actually, the reason why I'm going to talk about here is that finally they have now announced. But again, this is again why I find it suspicious. So now they've announced that, oh, they will be releasing the water into the canals. Okay. And as you know, we live near the canal. So all these residential areas now that are near the canal, we have a higher expectancy. Once again, we're still on high alert, and now we're on higher alert that if that happens, then again, because again, that shows the trust issues also that we have here. We don't know that they have the common sense to release enough to let it flow and then cut off, and then again, because again, when you're dealing with such things, you have to use your brains. You have to keep in mind all the repercussions. You have to keep in mind minimizing damage. So now everybody seems to think that, oh, now they're releasing the water in the canals. That means the areas now are going to be flooded. All the residential areas around the canal, all through the canal road, are going to be affected very badly. And this lack of trust, or this ultimate assumption, is correct, in the sense that as we can see what has been happening around us, and we can see what they've been doing, obviously. Now imagine if this was any other country that had the advantage of having such a huge canal network. You wouldn't be expecting, in fact, if anything, you would be having relief that, oh, okay, they're releasing the floodwater into the canals, and so everything is going to be fine, everybody's going to be safe. Remember how I questioned why didn't they release the water into the canals the first time around? I know people are now going to come up and say, oh no, that would have been so dangerous. Okay, so why are they releasing it now? You get my point? There is a time and a way to do it. They could have sparingly released, a certain amount of cusics of water, let it flow through, shut it, then again wait, let it flow through, shut it, then again wait. They could have done that. And actually that is how you do it when you have but no, instead they waited for people to get flooded, to get killed, their homes to be drowned, and the poor people, as I said, who are so sick and tired of always being relocated every single time, or every single time losing to the floods when they're not even in the danger zone, but because they're poor. And again, who's going to compensate them? Again, is your government giving you shelter? Is your government compensating you? Are they going to give you another home in somewhere safe where are they going to actually properly locate you to some place where you can live safely with all? No, your stuff is all gone, your house is all gone, you have to start from scratch all over again when you were already sitting in the bottomless pit. That is what life is like for people who are in the lower middle class or below poverty line. Or people tend to think that middle class people are very well off and all. No, because to be honest, in Pakistan, even the middle class is struggling at the moment, financially and otherwise. I mean, for example, this kind of a disaster, nobody can afford it, is what I'm saying. This is not the time and place to say, oh, middle class, they can still, you're well off, you can still. No, because again, the middle class in Pakistan, the lower and upper middle class in Pakistan, are those people who worked for decades to reach where they are today. Okay. They built their lives piece by piece, bit by bit. They earned their money. Unlike the rich and the elite, okay? The middle class, the lower middle class, they earned their money. And you know how hard it is to earn money, okay? The right way. When you earn money the right way, you piece your life together bit by bit, year by year, decade by decade. And then you reach a point in life where you can finally begin to breathe. But then no, you can't, because then now the government comes in and and everything comes in, and suddenly, so yeah, no, the losses cannot be borne by the poor people, the lower middle class, the upper middle class. It cannot be borne. Okay, The elites are not even being touched there. Look at the elites, how they've scammed the whole world, and they are far off, they're far away. And what are they doing? In fact, as we can see, Hamza Sharif was just trying to save his sugar mill, and to hell with. So he was basically flooding all the neighborhoods around him, trying to save the sugar mill. I like, are you serious? You know. And you know what, as I said, Parkview is a good example of how it was the people of Parkview that got together, the management, they got together. And what did they do? They tried to build a sort of a sand barrier, or a mud barrier. It will not hold, but at least they were doing something with whatever little they had. People are doing things on their own. You're not getting any proper rescue mission here. You're not getting the army that is properly actually working towards helping people, although they claim they are. The government is doing jack shit, although they claim they're doing so. I don't know what are they doing, because nobody see what we're seeing is the local people themselves making barriers so that the flood should somehow be contained. The people, and what do the people have? What tools do they have? Seriously, the farmers, what tools do they have? They're taking whatever basic tools they have, and they're using their shovels and their spades, and they're just digging and digging and digging and trying to create a higher ground, hoping that. But again, how much longer will that hold? Because the flow of the water, the volume, the flow, the speed actually at which the water is coming, it will not hold for long. So why is it, again I'll ask, that they knew that we were getting flooded, they knew we were getting heavy rainfalls, they knew that India would eventually have to open its floodgates because it happens every year? Why is it that decades have passed and they have never taken concrete steps? Why is it that they allowed people to be flooded, and they allowed people to face heavy losses, both of life and assets, before now they're ready to put water through the canals? As I said, I remember I even mentioned it, that I can see that they have prepped the canals because the canals are empty, and I kept on asking, why aren't they releasing the water into the canals? If right at the start they had started releasing a little bit of water every like a little bit of water and then break, and then a little bit, if they had started that right in the beginning, by now not only would we have lowered the volume of the water in the rivers to an extent where it could safely welcome the water from India, but we could have managed to contain the flood and keep it to a minimum. As I said, even when they were making these societies, which, okay, they did make, considering that they're the army and the government's, people and all, they were so keen to make money, they decided to rip people off, but they didn't even care that they should at least make diversions for the river to pass through in case of, again, because again, floods occur every year. The intensity of the floods may differ. Sometimes you may have very less damage, sometimes you have more damage. This time, again, as I said, you have to be a fool not to know how much damage to expect. Considering how last year we had an almost dry monsoon, it was inevitable that this year we were going to be completely wiped off, with a huge amount of rains. And yet you were seeing these people prancing about and clowning out. I mean, they should be killed. Seriously, I'll go out and say it again. The army, the government, they should be hanged. Okay? They're just playing with people's lives. According to them, a few lives are lost in Punjab compared to the amount of flood. Like, oh, are you serious? So their lives didn't matter. How much more lives do you need to take for it to matter? What is going on with people here? I don't know what the mentality is of people. Once again, you have the common man fighting to help each other survive, while your government is playing politics. And your army and your disaster management authority, they're like literally invisible at this point. I don't know where it is that they claim to be they are. I don't see them anywhere. I don't see them doing their due diligence. I don't see them, again, they could have so easily so easily managed this flood. Again, I would say these past 2 years, they had ample time to prove themselves to us by at least, if nothing else, then finishing the projects that Imran Khan started. If they did that, even maybe people would have said, oh, okay, fine, okay. I mean, you wanted to win us over, but you decided that the only way to win us over was to kill us, to kidnap us, to imprison us, and then to wreak havoc, to allow disasters to in fact create, because as I said, this disaster could have easily been avoided. I will keep saying that this could have been easily avoided. What were you doing for the past 7 decades? You just relied on the ancient Indus Valley Canal system, which was, developed and added on to by the British. And so you thought, oh, that's enough. We have the largest canal network in the world. Yeah. And yet you still get us flooded every year. I just cannot wrap my head around it because, as I said, one of the basic, you know, one of the basic things that a canal does is help contain flood. Seriously. And you kept all the canals dry. You waited for the flood to reach people's homes. And now when it's sort of, I don't know what it is that you people are doing, because to me it's common sense. You could have started little by little releasing a certain amount of water through the canals to help direct the water flow, to help keep everybody safe. You could have done that right from the start. I still do not understand what logic or what math you people are working. Maybe, okay, help me. I'm ignorant, okay? Consider me completely uneducated and illiterate. Educate me here. Your people are drowning, okay? People are drowning literally here. What do you want us to do right now to understand why you're not doing the stuff you're supposed to be doing? You could have, if nothing else, the emergency embankment that you suddenly started working on after the flood came and destroyed people's homes, you could have done that when India first notified you that, oh, you know what, as usual, we will have to open the floodgates. You will have to let the water in so that it can pass through and go all the way down to the sea. Now you tell me, what did you do? Did you make a temporary reservoir? No. Did you make your emergency embankment then? No. What the frack were you doing? Did you start little by little, lowering the volume of your own rivers into the canals to help pave the way for it? No, you didn't. You just emptied the canals and you stayed put, waiting for what? Really? How much cusics did you want to be flowing through in order for you to be ready to open it to the canals? You wanted to flood the people. That's what I can see, right? Because now if you release all that water, and again, knowing the kind of people that you are, we cannot even trust you to have the common sense to release the water at measured levels. No. What people are thinking now is that you're just going to release it all and everybody's going to get flooded again. That's it. Yeah, I know. You're going to now come at me saying, oh, we evacuated so many people. We evacuated, about 2 million people or whatever, 2 lakh people. Some are saying 2 million, some are saying 2 lakh, Okay. Again, what did you do apart from that? What is the concrete steps that you took, Because you do realize that more than about, I think, let's put it this way, about at least almost 1,000 villages were submerged due to the flooding in CHENAB River, right? And some 395 villages were affected by the floods in Sialkot, right? So this is, again, recorded as the worst flood ever, because as I said, if you come at me saying that, oh, okay, you know what, in these parts they do tend to face floods, yeah, okay, but not this kind again, okay? So you're basically saying that 1.46 million, and this is a cautionary number, 1.46 million people across the whole province of Punjab are affected, okay? And that the Punjab government claims that it has launched its largest evacuation operations. Okay. Again, how are you going to help compensate these people? What did you do to ensure that, first of all, this shouldn't have happened in the first place? Nothing. Emergency evacuations are not an actual help. That is just what you need to do immediately because you didn't do anything to stop it from happening, right? Now, at least about like, yeah, about 1700 villages at least, are basically gone, in a way, gone as in they're flooded, okay? And now, although they're claiming that Jhang and the other places were a bit okay, they're a bit safe because it seemed that the normal flow, but no, it's steadily rising. It was rising to such an extent that now they're thinking, okay, Jhang is also next in line. So again, what did you do? Because Narwal already went through it all, right? Shadara already has been flooded, and now the water is going down. Obviously, it's going down. Shadra was one of the first places to be flooded, and so now obviously the water will be seeping through, and the level will be going down because it's moving and it's seeping through. So okay, but tell me again. I will say, what did you do to prevent further losses? Nothing. You know So if I go on to nor, and these are all cautionary because these are your sort of government given figures. So do not even rely on them. If the government are giving you these figures, it means actually more than that has been. For example, if they're saying almost 1,000 villages were submerged due to the flooding in Chenab River. About 395 villages were affected in Sialkot, 127 in Jhang, 124 in Multan, 48 in Chiniot, 66 in Gujarat, 51 in Khanewal, 45 in Hafzabad, 41 in Sargodha, 35 in Mandi Bahauddin, 19 villages in Wazirabad. And I'm actually quoting from Dawn News. So you want to pick on them, please be my guest, because as I said, these numbers are lower than the actual numbers, as we all know, right? So animals, people, so there again, the government is saying, oh, we conducted rescue operations, we evacuated like more than 1 million people, and some 73,000 animals. Again, here I'm quoting Dawn News, that some 73,000 animals been moved to locations, and this number would obviously increase as each hour passes by, but again, I have actually seen people saving their own animals, making makeshift gadgets to help them safely cross the water with their animals, with their herds, with their cattle, with their donkeys, with their horses, whatever they have, and helping themselves and their animals through. I did not see actual rescue operations there. I saw people helping themselves and each other. I saw people helping each other, trying to make some sort of a makeshift barrier to sort of slow down or contain the flood. But again, as I said, how much can that, how much can that help? You're making barrier of mud because that's all you've got, even if you put concrete blocks, the volume, the speed at which the water is gushing through, what is there? And again, no compensation. That is no compensation to be expected from the government or the PDMA. What will be expected is them manipulating this whole situation, exploiting this whole situation, and asking for international support, which we know will go straight into their pockets. So what have we got here? I'm just not getting it. Nobody's getting it. It's not just me, nobody's getting it. Where is your actual authentic operation? Where is your actual authentic I'm not talking about rescue operation. I'm talking about actual operation to minimize devastation of floods. Again, as I said, they had enough time. Don't give me that crap. They had enough time. They knew. As I said 2 podcasts ago, or even 3 podcasts ago, you cannot tell me that they did not know that we were going to expect this kind of rainfall this year. We knew. And we knew that it was going to be heavy, and we knew that our rivers were going to be filled. After all, they emptied the canals. Why did they empty the canals if they did not know what was going to happen? Why are the canals emptied? Which means they're prepped for potential floods. So why didn't they start releasing water when the rivers reached their highest levels? Why didn't they start slowly releasing water bit by bit, you know, and into the canals, so that they could drain through and pass through, and then again empty them, and then again, they could have started doing that right from the start to save. So again, this is one of the most simplest things they could have done if they were left with nothing else. They could have again made reservoirs, they could have made embankments, they could have extended the the bund, they could have heightened the bund, they could have reinforced the bund by creating a higher barrier. They could have done all these things, and it would have taken a lot less time, and it would have been worth it. Okay, all these things would have still been worth it for them, but they just sat on their haunches and waited for the flood to come, and then they decided to cry blue murder and say, oh, it's an emergency. And literally the worst part is that they're notifying people about the flood risk literally when the flood is like 2 kilometers away. That's what they did to the residents of Parkview Society, by the way. When the flood had reached 2 kilometers away from the society, that's when they raised the alarm and said, oh, okay, the flood is coming your way. And as I said, it was the people of Parkview who tried to create some sort of a temporary barrier. Again, I'll call it temporary, because how can that stop the water? It can't. Mud, creating a high slope of mud, hoping that somehow, yeah, no, it didn't help. Parts of Garden Town is seeing a bit of flooding come through as well. And Garden Town is a huge residential area, so most of it is still dry and all, but there's a part of it that is being affected. It has been noted that floods are coming through. And Garden Town, as I said, is again, potentially supposed to be far, far away from, it's not supposed to easily get flooded. But there we are. Now, as I said, all those parts of Lahore which never would easily get flooded are getting flooded because of the corruption, because of the lack of river management, because of the lack of flood management, because of the lack of timely operations that could have avoided all of this. Very simple measures. In these last 2 years, what the frack were they doing apart from yapping about Imran Khan? That was, seriously, and stealing money from us and pocketing all the money. Seriously, I've had it till here with them. These people, again, I'll say, if you really, really want to save your country, you need to kill them all. I'm sorry, but as long as they're alive, we're doomed forever. Okay? They can make any amount of excuse. I'm not buying it. Maybe their supporters will buy it, I don't know, but I cannot believe any of the excuses that they're putting out right here. I just cannot believe it, because I have a pair of eyes and a brain, and I have questions. And the worst thing about people, is that when they try to act like specialists and they think you're a fool, and they give you all these stupid ass answers when you know that the answer is actually much simpler than that. So, as we are now again on high alert, because as I said, they have announced that they're going to release the water into the canals, and now everybody is like worried that that means flooding will occur in our areas as well. Because as I said, we can already see that the kind of people that they are, it's not like they're going to sensibly release the right amount of water through the canals, or they would have been doing that right from the start. They're just going to release everything probably, and that can cause damage. So people are worried, but let's see, maybe sense will prevail. While on the other side, again, on CHENAB and Satluj, they have reached to such heights that they have flooded not just villages, they've gone straight into towns again, like the same place. It's amazing. Again, I don't understand. It's amazing how all these decades, nobody did anything, really. And all we had were people coming out and saying, "Oh, you can't make this." And now the same people who were against the dams are now because actually, and don't think that they're actually thinking about us when they're thinking, "Oh no, we need to now finish the dams that were being, that had begun, that they had begun construction of." No, no, they're thinking that, "Oh, how much money can we earn now? How much more can we scam from the people now?" That's what they're thinking. They're thinking, how much kickback can we earn here while pretending to make a dam that will probably collapse in the next year or two. Well, I've had it till here. I don't know. The amount of destruction, and again, as I said, it's always the poor people that suffer the most because they already have so little with them. And every single time they get affected and they lose what little they have, and they have to begin from scratch all over again. And right now, the way the economy is, the way the government has screwed everybody, the lower middle class is going straight towards poverty line, and the upper middle class is going straight towards lower middle class. So you can imagine what's going on and what will happen, and the amount of devastation that can occur, which nobody can come out of, is what I'm saying. Nobody can actually come out of any financial loss, or the loss of life, obviously, that these people are deliberately incurring. These people are literally forcing these losses upon us, and they're doing it deliberately. You believe it or not, they're doing it deliberately. And this is me signing out. Khuda Hafiz.